Hi, this is Carolyn Blunt, and I'm going to take you through a short session on how to develop contact centre advisors into team managers. This is something that I get asked about quite a lot, and it's obviously a topic that's a really positive one. We want to think about home growing contact centre talent from the front line through to team manager and ultimately even into higher positions as well in the wider organisation. So I'm just going to go through some of the things that can help with that or hinder that process. When we think about developing talent from within, it's certainly important that we think about the recruitment and the activities that come prior to that as well. So just as a bit of background, I'll be talking about my part of the Ember group, which is Ember Real Results, but we are an end-to-end business services group. So we provide recruitment and we provide consulting, we provide interaction analytics and learning and development, which also gives our clients a full view of customer management best practice. In particular, my role in the organisation is to lead the learning and development function. So I've been working in contact centres for 15 years. I lead projects for great brands like these, and we're always utilising the latest thinking in L&D. We're looking at ways in which we can enhance our offerings through technology, cloud-based solutions and e-learning, and very much thinking about how we can get the best talent and make the industry more appealing for young people to come and work in and to grow that talent through the organisation. Make contact centres a career of choice for people in the future is quite a personal passion of mine. So when I work with a contact centre client, I can pretty much guarantee that when I walk into the operation, I will find four main types of advisor, and they look something like this. There will be people in there who have high performance but low potential, and those people are rocks. They tend to want to come to work, do a good job, go home. They're not interested in spending lots of extra time doing learning and development activities or assessment centres for promotions. They don't necessarily want to stay beyond their shift out of choice. So that's fine though, because every organisation needs people who are just going to want to kind of do the legwork, and we can't, from a hierarchy perspective, promote everybody because you just create a bottleneck. So we do need a good element of those. However, when we think about the talent that we want for the future, we would expect to see a number of what I would call rising stars. So their performance at the moment might still be quite low. They might be relatively new to your organisation still, but you can see that they've got high potential and you've recruited them because you can tell that they are potentially a star of the future. And those stars are the ones that you really want to hang on to and make the best of in your organisation. They will have high performance and high potential, and it's about how you identify them, how you keep them developing, how you keep them interested, and that you don't lose them. However, when we also think about monkeys, as I call them, the cheeky ones, who are low performance and potentially have low opportunities for development, those are the people that we might want to think about moving out. So those are the people who either need to change and become a rock or a rising star, or we're not talking about coaching and training and development here, we're actually talking about performance management. And that's part of a team manager's role, to be able to have those tough conversations, to do that appropriately, and if it means that we get rid of somebody, then that's absolutely what has to happen. So just to get our thinking warmed up, let's go for a fact or myth game. So you can just have a think about this as I pose the question. If you're doing this as a team activity, then maybe you can all stand up if you think it's a fact, stay seated if you think it's a myth. The best advisors make the best managers. Do you think that is fact or myth? I would say it's a myth. I would say that you need a very different set of skills to be a good team manager as compared to an advisor. And quite often this is a mistake that's made when people are promoted, particularly in organisations that are growing rapidly and they need to move people onwards and upwards quickly. And they will say that person's really good on the phones, therefore let's make them a manager. And what we sometimes fail to realise is that it's a completely different skill set when you get there. And not giving managers the appropriate training and support can lead to them finding that role extremely difficult. And there's another reason why they find it difficult at times. If we think about a manager who is managing their ex-teammates, Would you expect that to make life easier or more challenging? I would say it's more challenging to manage your friends' underperformance. If you think about it, one week you're part of the gang, you're all having a social interaction, and then the next week you're the manager and you have to have a conversation with them about absence or lateness. It becomes quite challenging. So we need to think about, how do we support team managers to be able to have those conversations? How can we give them an opportunity to cut their teeth as a manager with a team that they weren't previously part of as well? So the structure is really important. Final one on this game is, are effective team managers well respected? I would say they are. I would say being respected is more important than being liked. I think that quite often, again, particularly if it's leading former colleagues, team managers focus on the rapport and the banter. Contact centres are quite social places to work. There's usually quite a lot of fun, and we do lots of activities, and themes around different calendar points in the year or business promotions. And it should be fun and engaging. However, it's not about being a mate with the team that you lead and manage. You've got to be able to stand up and be a good role model and take those tough conversations on, be able to take constructive criticism on yourself as well, and be able to find that right balance. And that's really important when it comes to thinking about training and development for team managers. I just wanted to share with you a few examples of successful advisors that I know that have become senior leaders. And all of these three people that you see on the screen right now, they started on the phones doing frontline work and have developed onwards and upwards in good brands. They've reached very, very senior positions, and have had extremely good careers. And I think that is one of the reasons why I think our industry is so fantastic in the contact centre world, because we do have that opportunity to give people an education about business and customers and products and services from the grassroots up. And it usually sits within a kind of head office function. So there's quite often the opportunity to do secondments and shadowing and build a network and branch out into other areas as well. So I think this is a really, really positive topic that we're discussing today, and something that, if you're listening and thinking about applying, you should be really proud of that and think about how your organisation celebrates and shouts about that going forward. So what are the key ingredients to make talent development from the front line upwards work effectively? I touched earlier thinking about recruitment, and absolutely when we think about recruiting for a contact centre advisor, we also want to be thinking, would this person potentially be a good leader of the future? And to start thinking about, what are some of our existing good leaders that have fitted into our culture really well? What was it about them that worked? How do we replicate that? What are the mistakes and the learning points we've had from recruitment in the past? Naturally, we've got to be mindful of this. I've had some clients who come to me and said, you know what, we've almost got this too right, because the contact centre has become such a kind of passing through phase for people that they're moving off into other parts of the head office within 6 months. And that all that is doing is generating a huge cost base around recruitment and training for the contact centre. It's great for the individuals, it's great for the other parts of the business, but for the contact centre to pay for that and sustain that, it becomes very draining. And that's another conversation to be having at board level, and to decide, is that an okay strategy? And if it is, how do we get that extra funding and support centrally for the contact centre to do that? But it's certainly something to think about for how we can certainly find talent that will stay in the contact centre, hopefully for about 2 years as a minimum, but that could potentially be a good coach, a good team leader, perhaps might have an interest in moving into resource planning or one of the other associated contact centre functions. The other thing we need to be mindful of is thinking about induction, and how well do we tell a story in induction about the possibilities. So similarly, as I've just shown you a picture of 3 people that I know who've moved on from front lines into very senior careers, do we tell those sorts of stories as part of the induction? How do we set people's expectation during the recruitment and induction as well. So those clients who I mentioned who said, we're churning talent far too quickly and feeding it up into the business, we've then built in an opportunity to sell in the recruitment process. Yes, this is possible, it does happen, but we need to do at least 12 to 24 months of frontline experience, a bit like a grad scheme. There is a minimum kind of time served piece before you move on. So that management of expectation in the recruitment induction phases is really important. The next ingredient is a little formula, which is knowledge plus experience equals confidence. So it's how do we give our frontline advisors knowledge and experience so that we give them the right confidence. Excuse me. So we want to be looking for that and thinking about how can we find people who are hungry, they've got that thirst for knowledge, that they look for opportunities to develop the experience, and they raise their game and show that confidence in the daily environment. And those are people who you can start saying, right, their name goes in my rising stars box. We'll also be looking for energy and commitment. We'll look for that through the recruitment process, and we'll look for that when they start work, thinking about how enthused they are to want to come to work and to be part of the team. And how do we, as their current managers, sponsor and support that and really help them to demonstrate that. One of the ways in which it becomes really evident really quickly is also in their helpfulness. So how helpful a good advisor is to customers or colleagues on a daily basis. And equally, what is their positivity and their resilience like? So when they've had a difficult call or conversation, or they've had some feedback, and it's how do they bounce back from that? Do they take that on the chin? Everybody might have a little bit of a wallow and a little bit of time to assimilate and reflect and think about it, but then do they come back and say, yeah, I've thought about it, I've changed my stance, or I understand what I need to do differently next time. And that's a really good opportunity to reward, encourage and support that individual. Another thing I would want to be looking for in them and making sure I facilitate is adaptiveness to change. So if you have somebody who joins your organisation and very quickly gets their feet under the table and moans and blames and whinges when we change the seating plan or the contents of the vending machine, then that negativity breeds more negativity in their colleagues, and it's something that I would really want to quash and manage out and make sure that that doesn't breed more dissatisfaction in other people. So future talent certainly would have a much more positive approach. One of the other things is solution-focused thinking. So I really love it when I sit with an advisor as part of my consulting, design and research work, and they get a difficult call and they come up with a creative way to make it better. And they constantly wow me with the things that they think of. And, it can be like an associated goodwill gesture. So instead of just offering vouchers or cash or free delivery, they think of something, they look at the customer's history and they think of something really relevant to that individual's previous purchases or their account history. And it's just really thoughtful. And I find that really interesting, and it makes me kind of think this is a person who's got something about them, and that will go into my rising star box definitely. And that kind of links with being innovative. It's about having those ideas, putting forward new ways of working, thinking about how systems, processes can constantly be improved, putting the customer at the heart of whatever we think we do. And that's a real genuine service attitude thing that I think when you have it, it becomes quite common sense. But a lot of people don't have it, and they dig their heels in, and it becomes a battle with the customer, and that is just not what we want in our future team managers. So how do you fairly identify team leader potential? Because we've been talking about looking for all these signs and ingredients and opportunities, but we also need to make it fair and equitable. So I would always advocate doing what most people would call a development centre. So it's a bit like an apprentice sort of style activity, but all in one day, where you would do a number of different kind of things around activities for testing listening skills, leadership management skills, but it's not just about testing them to fail, it's about testing them to identify what the development needs of that individual actually is, and then creating a learning plan that's tailored to them for the next 12 months. And in doing that, what we're avoiding is doing the whole sheep dip program and saying, right, here are 12 modules, everyone goes through everything once a month for 12 months. We're actually thinking more about what do I as an individual need, what's the top priorities for me, and how can I have a customised learning path. And the delivery of that modular leadership isn't necessarily classroom based. It can be online learning, it can be watching content, TED Talks, webinars, podcasts, things like this that you can access. Certainly thinking about how you can shadow people in other environments, other organisations is always the best, I think. Seeing how other people do things brings back lots of different ideas. I think that's certainly one of the things I know I've benefited from. I've been working in a consulting capacity for the last 13 years, so the number of different organisations I've had the pleasure of actually getting under the skin of in that time has been amazing, and I think that massively contributes to all the different ideas that you can have. And then thinking about ultimately having an assessment centre, which is where you would take your final set of applicants all through the same screening process with a panel of trained assessors, and again they would do a range of activities, interviews, tests, and then ultimately the successful candidate will be chosen. And that is the way in which we can then provide robust feedback to those that weren't successful. Or if you've set a bar and it's okay, 3 or 4 get over 80%, that's our final pool, and we interview from that pool and make a selection. Those 3 that didn't get chosen out of that pool will be the ones that we'll go to for interview next time, and we might only need to run 1 or 2 assessment centres a year. Depends on the size of your organisation and how many vacancies you have. I would also suggest thinking about how you can develop people up. Moving from an advisor to a team manager in one jump is a big leap. So if we've got floor walking and covering for the team leader on their days off and things like that, it helps to sort of build that bridge. When we start to get into thinking about modules that we should deliver for people, I would certainly start with making sure people understand contact centre, key performance indicators, all the metrics behind that, the technology, the infrastructure. I'm talking out and out contact centre operations here, because I think quite often what will happen is an advisor is taught in how to use the system. They're taught in dealing with customers, hopefully, your products and services, and then they're put into a management role. And they're not always supported with best practice operations management, and it's a whole other ballgame. Yes, we can talk about people management, and there's loads of stuff out there, but also people management in contact centre operations is also a slight differentiated niche, and again, people need some help with that. So particularly performance coaching is my next go-to module, because that's where we're saying, right, let's take the call recordings, let's take the email logs, the chat logs, social feeds, and let's have a look at how you've performed, and let's have some conversations and ask some questions to help you be even better next month. And that's a unique thing, and that's what I would call performance coaching in a contact centre environment. Also thinking about quality management best practice, so looking at how the scorecard is built and how that's used, making sure that that's constantly evolving and modern, making sure they're aware of the compliance and regulatory aspects of their roles, the workforce management and scheduling, how that's best approached, being able to use influencing skills upwards as well as downwards, and time management so that they're effective role models in that space and that they can prioritise well. I think it's an absolute travesty when team managers are spending too much time behind their PCs and not enough time with their actual teams, but that's also about how much support they have in the production of management information, which feeds back to number 1 around understanding contact centre KPIs and the technology. And then finally thinking about best practice in relation to customer experience. So what is the organisation's approach? What's their strategy? What's their technology? Does the contact centre team leader feed ideas to the ops manager or ops director? Does the contact centre and the customer experience function have a seat at the boardroom table, and is that joined up with the IT director and the marketing director and everybody else? And the reason why I think this is so important is we do need to think about where our future leaders are coming from as an organisation, and that is, we can go and recruit them externally, but what does that do to morale? It's more expensive, and obviously those people that you recruit externally, they may bring other ways of working and ideas, which is great, but you have got to teach them everything else about your business from scratch. And I think, as much as a team leader doesn't need to be able to take a call or handle an email, I think it's pretty cool when they can. I think that does earn the respect of the team. I think one of the challenges sometimes can be when they sort of get pulled back down into rolling up their sleeves and saying, okay, we've got backlogs, so I'm going to sit here like one of you and fire off 50 emails. That can be equally challenging. But it is really cool from a credibility perspective. I think if you have got a clear talent pathway, I think it helps with the retention of talent, the attracting of future talent, and really feeds your business with smart people who know your organisation and its customers really well. Another question I've got for you is, how effective are your blended and digital learning strategies? Because a lot of the time when I'm talking about developing talent from within, everybody's picturing classroom-based sessions and modular workshops and things that are delivered physically and take quite a lot of time and money to do. It doesn't have to be purely like that. It can be blended, and it can be digital strategies that are a big part of that. And so at Ember Real Results, we've been working with a lot of our clients to evaluate their learning management systems, to think about how they get the best out of learning technologies, look at how easy it is to find the content that they've already got on there, help them curate new content onto there, and also to think about how they can generate more traffic into their learning management systems. And to help them with that, we developed this tool which is called Errol, which is Ember Real Results Online Learning. And Errol is an owl who sends learners an email every day through their inbox to ask them a question. And those questions can be for categories for advisors, team managers, they can be about products, they can be about soft skills, compliance, whatever you want. And what that does is obviously serves the question, lets them know whether they got that question correct or wrong. And if they got that wrong, can provide a link which will then send them into the learning management system, which is the piece around how do we get the traffic and the uptake higher, so that people have a thirst for learning and it becomes part of your culture in your organisation. And there's another part to that, which is team managers need to make sure that their people take that 1 hour a week or whatever percentage you plan for learning and development, and that they complete it, and that ideally that's done away from the normal desk in a kind of learning hub type environment where they're not going to get interrupted or pulled back onto answering customer calls. And that's a way in which we can think about creating more talent from within, a really good robust pathway, managing those expectations, but also keeping things moving along nicely. And by doing that, we'll be aiming to have a lot more rocks and rising stars and stars than we do monkeys. So I've rattled through quite a lot of content there. I appreciate you may have some questions or things that maybe didn't quite make sense. If you want to come back to me on that, feel free. That's my email address, that's my phone number, and you're very welcome to get in touch with me at any time. I hope that's useful. Thank you.